The Romans imagined that the gods were superpowers and protective spirits. But after coming in contact with the civilization of ancient Greece in the 6th century BC, they began to represent their gods in human form. This explains the fact that Roman mythology is not as authentic as Greek mythology. Let's see how the Romans copied the Greek gods, what common elements they have, and what differences exist. Juno versus Hera. Juno was an ancient Roman goddess, the protector and special counsellor of the state. She was equated to Hera, queen of the gods in Greek mythology. Even though Juno was the wife of Jupiter and was the queen of the gods in the Roman Pantheon, she is not quite the same as Hera when it comes to her personality. Hera is often portrayed as being very vindictive and someone who shows no mercy to those who wrong her, including women and children. However, Juno is shown to be a much more loving goddess, full of grace and non-violence. Neptune versus Poseidon. Neptune is the god of fresh water and the sea in Roman religion. He is the counterpart of the Greek god Poseidon. Poseidon is depicted solely with a trident as the god of the sea. This went for water in general, but he was mainly known for his sea title. Something that he is a little less known for is being the god of earthquakes and horses as well. Neptune is almost a caricature of Poseidon. Originally, he was seen as the god of fresh water, which is much different to the sea that Poseidon rules over. However, by 399 BC, he was closely associated with Poseidon. Venus versus Aphrodite. Venus is the Roman goddess of love and the most beautiful goddess from the Roman Pantheon. Her counterpart in Greek mythology is the famous Aphrodite. But even though Venus is clearly a copy after Aphrodite, there is a difference between the two goddesses. Aphrodite is only regarded as a goddess of love, beauty and sexuality, whereas Venus is also perceived as goddess of vegetation, fertility and a patroness of prostitutes. Jupiter versus Zeus. Jupiter is the top god of the Roman Pantheon. He is also known as Jove and is the god of sky and thunder, as well as the king of gods in ancient Roman mythology. Jupiter is the equivalent god of Zeus in Roman mythology. There are no actual differences between Zeus and Jupiter. They have the same attributes. Zeus is Jupiter. Vulcan versus Hephaestus. Vulcan is the god of fire, including the fire of volcanoes, deserts, metalworking, and the forge in ancient Roman mythology and myth. His equivalent in Greek mythology is Hephaestus. They practically represent the same god with the same attributes, just that their stories differ a little bit. Hephaestus' father is unknown, but Vulcan's father is known, Jupiter. Also, Hephaestus worked in the forge alone, but Vulcan made women of gold to help him. The last difference is that Vulcan creates Jupiter's lightning bolts, but Hephaestus just creates weapons and other tools. Zeus received his lightning bolts from the Cyclops as a gift after he released them from Kronos' prison. Diana versus Artemis. Diana, in Roman religion, is the goddess of wild animals and the hunt, identified with the Greek goddess Artemis. Like her Greek counterpart, she was also a goddess of domestic animals and hunting. They are incredibly similar to each other. Pluto versus Hades. The Romans had Pluto as a god of the underworld. His counterpart in Greek mythology is the more famous Hades, also the god of the underworld. They copied even the story behind his stolen bride, and also her name is very close to the original one from Greek myths, Proserpina in Roman mythology and Persephone in Greek mythology. But even though they had many similarities, they had one major difference, and that was that Pluto was also the god of wealth because of the minerals that were found under the earth, and the Romans decided that he would be fit to be the god of these two. Mars versus Ares. Mars was the Roman incarnation of Ares, the Greek god of war. Despite the fact the Romans also copied him off the Greeks, as most of their deities, they did have a few differences. Ares wasn't very popular among the Greeks. He represented the bloody carnage in war rather than heroism in war, and as such, he was a suspicious figure to the Greeks. Ares is usually only a minor character in Greek myths, to the extent that he appears at all. When he does, he usually ends up being humiliated or humbled. It's no secret that the Romans were a sight more bloodthirsty than their Greek counterparts, and Mars became one of their most important deities. He was second only to Jupiter. Perhaps surprisingly, he was also the god of agriculture, taking over duties from the Greek goddess Demeter, reflecting the role of soldiers in farming in Roman society. While Ares was considered a destructive force, Mars during the middle years of the Roman Empire began to represent the Pax Romana and the peace that Rome enjoyed. He was particularly important to the Romans as the mythical father of Romulus and Remus, the founders of the city of Rome. Mercury versus Hermes. The Roman god Mercury is a copy of the Greek Hermes, and did not evolve from a local character, though speculations have been made that he might be linked to the Etruscan god Hermes. Since we know little about the Etruscan gods, we can link them any way we want. Instead of morphing from one god, Mercury emerged from several, the so-called Dei Lucri, a group of minor Roman deities of commerce, trade, and other lucrative activities. Both are known to be messengers of gods, but Hermes is also the god of thieves and travellers, whereas Mercury is only the messenger of gods. So Hermes and Mercury are similar to an extent, but not exactly the same. Apollo. Apollo was one of the few gods that the Romans kept the same name. In Greek mythology, he was most widely known as the god of light. Within Roman mythology, he wasn't known as much as the god of light and was focused mainly as the god of healing and prophecy. Minerva versus Athena. Minerva in Roman mythology is the counterpart goddess of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, reason, and war in Greek mythology. They mainly had the same attributes, but there was also a major difference between them. Minerva was not considered a war goddess in Roman mythology. The Romans had their own war goddess, Bellona, that they worshipped instead. Bellona was entirely Roman and was not connected to the Greeks. Bacchus versus Dionysus. Originally, Dionysus was the Greek god of fertility. Later, he became known chiefly as the god of wine and pleasure. The Romans called him Bacchus. While the two gods are functionally the same, certain specifics about each one differ. This is most broadly seen in how they're interpreted today. Dionysus is seen as a jovial, respectful figure in myth and classical literature. He is even included among the 12 Olympians in certain readings, his cult being instrumental in the development of theatre in Greece. Bacchus, on the other hand, is often seen as a debaucherous partier, the Romans even inventing the word Bacchiaea to refer to the drunken frenzy he was said to induce in his followers. His cult also painted him as a much more vengeful god, using his Thyrus staff as equal parts magic wand and a weapon to destroy those who opposed the cult and its ideals of freedom. I hope you liked the video, and I hope you learned new things about the resemblances and differences between the Roman and Greek gods. If you know other Roman gods that have counterparts in Greek mythology, please tell us about them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to be notified when new videos arrive. Yours truly, Mythos, the Historian.